100%, and it will happen. I think
Yeah.
we have a lot of conversation with Disney, Netflix, Universal, and they're all interested in this. But it just whether it's B Corp or sustainability, it's all about tying it together so it become a uniform approach.
Welcome to the VFX Artists podcast, where we delve into the world of visual effects and entertainment. I'm your host, Arpita, and join us as we speak with industry experts from the creative, business, technology, and other facets that feed into this ever-changing industry. Robin is our first guest today. Robin, originally from Sweden, has been living in London since 2001. Starting in retail and hospitality, Robin has led various organizations through their growth phases. He entered the visual effects industry in 2018, and for the past 6 years, he's been the COO at Dupe VFX, leading the company's successful drive to become the first VFX firm to be certified as B Corp and guiding their initiative to become carbon neutral. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this. Sustainability and VFX are two words you seldom find in the same sentence in this industry. So can you tell me a bit about how you got into this space and how Dupe considered becoming a B Corp?
Sure. So Dupe VFX is a fairly young company. It's been around since 2018, and it was founded by the owner, Jonathan Harris, who's the primary drive behind our B Corp certification, which is part how we got into the sustainability journey. B Corp was fairly new, especially in the European markets, and he was very early on reading book called "Let My People Go Surfing," and it's written by the owner of Patagonia, and that's how we found out about B Corp and started looking into it. My beginning of Dupe was actually to lead the B Corp certification, which has a lot of operational back inputs really. So when you go through B Corp, you have 5 different areas that you get assessed around, and it's around governance, it's around your impact on workers, environment, community, and customers. And obviously, it raises a lot of questions around a lot of questions how you run the company. It's a framework with almost around 200 questions in the different areas. So that's really how we started a journey around figuring out what's our imprint or impact on the environment.
And how long was the studio active before they decided to go down this route?
It was from the start. So
Dupe started, and as they started, they wanted to certify as B Corp.
Exactly, yeah. So I think to become a B Corp, you need to have 1 year of business information, and
Right.
you have to do the 1 financial year. So in the beginning, we submitted the assessment, and we become a pending B Corp, as they call it. So any new company who wants to join to become a pending B Corp, and once you've passed the 1 year, you get analyzed and assessed. So yeah, so it's so straight from the beginning.
Right. I wonder whether it because there may be many studios right now who might want to transition into that. What do you think are the challenges for a studio that's already been operational for many years and then trying to embark on this journey?
I think there's pros and cons if you start from the beginning when a company starts, and also when you're already an established company. I would say in some ways it was easy for us to become a B Corp because a lot of while we were setting up the company and putting policies in place, processes in place, we knew what questions was asked by the B Corp assessment. So that helped us quite a lot, and that could be something like, well, should we get private medical health insurance? Okay, well, that seems to be a good thing to have. I mean, that's quite obvious and that's common, but imagine a lot of smaller questions around, how do you write your job descriptions, or do you do any checks on diversity, such as gender pay gap, or uh, do you know your um, uh, carbon impact on the environment? So all of those questions, it's easy to start thinking ahead. Okay, how do we set it up so we can gather this information? Now, if you have a bigger company and you're already established, you might have established a lot of the processes that you would consider good practices or best practices. Uh, but I would say you need buy-in from everyone in the company, and sometimes, depending on what company you are, but it might be hard to change some processes and procedures because people are used to certain things. So there's pros and cons. I wouldn't say one way is necessarily better than the other. The best thing to do really is whoever are leading the B Corp certification is to actually sign up to their website, where it's called a Business Impact Assessment, the BIA. It's free, and once you input some of your basic company information, it will put you on a track. So there's 200 questions will differ a tiny little bit depending on what type of company, or if you're a company, selling a service, if it's a product, if you're manufacturing, or so. There's around 200 questions, and you need to get 80 points to pass that. And a big question, such as I mentioned about the private medical health, I can't remember exactly the point, but that might be 0.5 points or something. So it's quite hard to gather those points.
And I imagine because it's a beginning of your journey rather than something you're aiming for and then stopping, and you must be getting audited and certified every year. So it's a continued process, and you have to keep building on where you started, right?
It is. It's every 3 years that you need to recertify, and I think they're changing the assessments again. So especially the reassessment, I think the new assessment is going to emphasize more on improvements. As an example, what we our first certification versus our second one, it's slightly different. In some areas we did better, in some areas we did less good. So it's a very up and down, and I think that's the interesting part with B Corp, or what it is and what it means. It's hard to be consistent in all areas. It will depend on what resources you have in the company and how well you have set things up.
And it's also a vision that you're trying to promote within the company and also within the industry. That leads to the question: have you found any change in either the kind of clients you get on board? Do you find clients appreciating this kind of a certification or an ethos that you have as a company?
For sure. I think there's always a talking point at some points of our journey with clients. I wouldn't say necessarily that people come to us just because of B Corp, but they might have heard about you because of B Corp, because they're interested. And but I think I would probably say that sustainability is probably is what is mostly discussed with us at the moment after 6 years, and also that's probably where we done most of our work as a company.
And I think a couple of other studios have also followed suit in becoming B Corp as well.
Indeed, yeah. I think Jellyfish just became a B Corp, and I believe there's a few more looking into starting the journey. So it's very much welcome, and I think it's good to standardize what it means to be a business that's trying to do good. Again, I think it's very important to emphasize that if you become a B Corp, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're perfect in any way. It just means that you have intentions to improve and do better in certain areas, and that you have passed a certain level of criteria to be certified.
And during these choppy times in the industry, and especially with 2024 having been so tricky, I'm curious to know how your organization has managed to strike that balance between, making decisions that are financially good for the business versus trying to keep this at the forefront of all your choices.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the industry downturn affects the way necessarily we do things. It's more about resources than what you can track and not. So let's say, example, if you have a larger HR team, then you will have much more time dealing with employee well-being, dealing with career developments, and you will dealing with feedbacks and such. So if you downsize, which we did, and many other companies, you have less of those resources, and so those things can maybe fall on the back burner a little bit, and so yeah, it does affect in that sense, but it's not really a monetary thing that we're doing something totally different because it's there's an industry downturn. It's more about what we have to pull back on a little bit just because of time.
Can you give me a practical example of how you do something differently in your studio to be in line with the ethos of B Corp?
Yeah, sure. So measuring is probably in all areas. I think when you do those assessments, you realize that you're asked for tons of information. So as in most operations, people will start thinking, and probably production people, like how do we log this data in a very sustainable way?
Because metrics are important, right?
No, exactly. And when you're being asked from various people, whatever it is, you don't want to start from from a blank sheet. You want to be able to rinse and repeat the information that you have. So it's how you log them. I think sustainability is probably one big thing that we set up. We embed a lot of our emissions data in our accounting system. We have set up our deadline in certain ways so that we can get attributes that we can use to break down different emissions informations.
Right.
So that's things happening in all the time in the background. I think it's important to all these things. I think it's important to kind of embed it into your day-to-day operations rather than it become an additional things. So it's the consideration when you're doing things that's important. As an example, we every time we work with an outsourced company, we do a supplier get to know supplier questionnaire, and it's not necessarily we're not enforcing it contractually with outsourcing, but it's a letter that goes out before we start working with them. It's like, hey, we really value working with like-minded companies, and there's no right and wrong answers. We would love to know more about your what kind of policies and stuff you have around workers, around wages, around who's the lowest to, well, not who's the lowest, but like the ratio of lowest to highest, the gender ratio in the company, what kind of environmental. So that's a conversation and a part of our onboarding of outsourcing that we do. So that's just a small thing. I think I mentioned that it's B Corp isn't this one big tick that you do. It's a lot of small little boxes that you take and considerations that you do. So, yeah.
I also imagine that because you're trying to do this within your company, you also want to be a good example. So do you talk about this to studios you interact with, encourage them to follow a similar route? What do you see the ultimate goal of this for the industry, and where do you see Dupe going with this?
We've always been encouraging to any company that we speak to. There's been a lot of companies getting in touch with us, hearing about it, and asked us about, how to move forward. And
Yeah, because I mean, the first studio in the world, that's a big thing.
yeah, no, that's a great achievement, and we're very
Yeah,
proud of that, you know.
yeah.
But uh, we, I think as with every certification, it's a framework. You know, there might be loads of companies doing already amazing things. You don't need B Corp necessarily be a B Corp to be a good
Mm,
company. You know, you already are probably. But if you join something like B Corp, then you have a benchmark, you have a framework where you can compare yourself, and you can benchmark yourself with other companies, not just yourself as well. So so we've had many conversations over the years with people, uh, and been helping on the journey. Um, Not just B Corp, as also around the sustainability uh, in the emissions tracking, etc.
I'd love to share it in the show notes as to the website you mentioned where any studio can start if they're looking to explore and go down this route. I did want to touch upon one more thing, Robin. Once you've got the certification, what are the kind of challenges that you might face?
I, I I would say internally people not fully understanding what it means to be a B Corp, and that can be part of the internal communication that we haven't been good at it or not. But you do have a lot of people coming and going, and uh, and and people have an idea of different ideas of what that means. So um, I think in day-to-day operations, when we do certain things, I think people don't fully might not fully be engaged or understand why we need to do certain things, and 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 that's probably quite challenging. We talked about measuring a lot of data, and you know that doesn't come from just one person. That's across the whole of the company.
Yeah.
That will be from producers or production. That will be from tech. That will be from pipeline. Uh, that will be from the 2D and 3D team. You know, so there are things everyone does that feeds into the journey, but it's about clarifying. You know why that is important, and but keeping that in communication going and understanding that's I've found that quite difficult, and also just keeping it consistent, because you know you have different type of projects, and you have different uh, you know your company is working at different capacity depending on the year and the projects, so people don't always have time to do certain things that they're required to do people. So then that becomes well, that's just a side thing. Um, so, you know, just giving feedback to artists, you know, coming from supervisors and so on. And as part of being a B Corp is actually to give feedback, and and but that can be tough when you are working live on a project and there's deadlines, and so consistency and trying to you know get the engagement consistently around B Corp, that's quite difficult, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's and one of the arms that I remember you mentioning of the five was community as well. I'm curious to know what you guys do in terms of engaging with the community and yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing around community, what people think about probably is volunteering. But in that category, a lot of things like how many jobs you created, how many local hiring you've done, how you dealing with other, uh, if you're working with other companies or helping, then your office to charitable causes and such things. I think we do, a lot of companies do this, but we do paid volunteering 2 days a year. Now the uptake isn't always great because it's kind of hard to take the first step to do volunteering. Um, I think I do it here in Kilburn at a food bank pretty much every other week. So we try to do that. We've done a few um, tree planting in groups, which is quite fun. But those kind of things are um, easier to do.
So, a lot of friends that I speak to and my networks in the industry, I feel every studio is probably doing something along these 5 arms. So it's just about the teams coming together and saying, okay, how directed do we want this to be? How much do we want to elevate this? A simple example you said was using Deadline for resource tracking, right? How much energy has been used.
Yeah, for our emissions calculations.
Emissions.
Yeah.
Because, rendering is one of the most energy intensive operations in the company. Yeah, it involves a lot of resources and power. So maybe one step that studios can do is consider using a render manager that has better tracking and statistics than another, right?
Yeah, it's all customizable, right? So the different
Yeah.
companies have it all set up differently. Again, it goes back to once you set the company up and you know what to measure, you know how to set it up, and we as an example, we in the very beginning we didn't have the data retention in that, so it didn't go back as far as we wanted. So that's something changed, and then we couldn't, the data wasn't organized in a way that we could pull out this department, or this is this project, and this is this pool of render. So you tweak those things until they fit your purposes. And once that's done once, you can have reliable data moving forward.
Are there any investments a company has to make in order to start the certification?
I think it's easy to think that you're spending a lot of money on additional things. That's not necessarily true. You do pay a membership fee each year, and that's tiered towards your revenue. I think that's an affordable cost. Anything after that is around implementation that you want to do. If you want to have a very a tech system that can do certain things that allows you to measure information live, you want to maybe store that information, maybe that has a cost. But not other than that. It depends on what you want to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will cost you a leg and an arm to be a B Corp.
And you've done a fair few talks around this, right, at different events. If somebody wants to find and watch one of your videos, can you just share if there's any online?
I think there's one on. We just been to Turin to the View conference, and that was recorded, so that's on their website.
Nice.
I'm not sure if it's you have to pay or subscribe to something, but that talk is around mainly around our sustainability journey and how we do that.
Nice. Cool.
So,
Nice. Well, I think this brings us to the end of our discussion around B Corp and sustainability. I would like to ask you, Robin, this being a VFX Artists podcast, is there anything that you'd like to share with an artist? Something that you came across recently, either a book, a film, or an article that might add to their knowledge, awareness, or quality of their life?
An interesting book that we read at Dupe is Be More Pirates.
Oh.
It's can't remember what the author's name is, but I can send you the link.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting book. I think it's not just for VFX, but it's a general book around mindset, and they talk about the history of pirates and how they've implemented a lot of good in life. They had voting rights on the ships, and they had a way of working with equality. There was women's rights and so on. And that book is very interesting to read. And I think that and it talks a little bit about being a little bit different, and and not just following the status quo. So I think that I would recommend that book for people to read.
I just looked it up, and it's by Sam Conniff.
That's it. Yeah, that's Sam Conniff.
And to make change, to create change, the first thing you've got to do is be different and do things differently from the rest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but it's a good read, and it's nothing too complicated, but it kind of opens your thinking a little bit.
Nice. This was a really great conversation, Robin, and I think this is. I'm glad that you took the initiative to go down this route for your studio, and I hope many studios start considering this, because I think at least for myself, I feel the ultimate goal is just for us to raise the bar,
Yeah,
and just for this to be a little more mindful as an industry, because of all the things that are happening right now. It's got a bit of a bad rep, and with little actions like this and keeping this at the forefront, I think we can all make the industry a better place. And
uh,
yeah, I imagine someday, there'd be certifications even on films before the screening. When you see the PG-13, there's also one which says that it had a certain tag as well for being more conscious or being more energy efficient, and that would be the ideal goal someday to raise the bar.
100%, and it will happen. I think
Yeah.
we have a lot of conversation with Disney, Netflix, Universal, and they're all interested in this. But it just whether it's B Corp or sustainability, it's all about tying it together so it become a uniform approach.
Yeah, it has
Um,
to be worked from all sides, and there's no point just the VFX studios doing it, because the houses also have to keep that as a priority for them to promote it, right?
100%. And but I think we're moving that way. So I'm excited about it. And yeah.
Nice. Where can people find you, Robin?
Um, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share my work email. Um, uh, happy to, if anyone have any questions, I'm happy to talk about them. Uh,
Excellent.
yeah.
Very
Keen
nice.
to keen to help people get started.
Nice. Great. We'll be in touch for sure. Thank you so much, Robin. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.